think it's definitely people are running for their mental health now as opposed to physical health. Like when I started running, or like when like our generation were starting to work out, it was always to lose weight.
I don't take things like that serious, if that makes sense. And I was a little bit slower. The funny thing is, I didn't actually realise I was slow until people on Instagram told me I was slow.
You almost have a moral obligation to show a part of that, because otherwise people will chase the running the ultras and stuff and think it's easy, I'm just going to do that. And I think we have to understand our influence and go, actually, yeah, this is hard.
Hello and welcome to the Runners World podcast with me, Rick Pearson.
And me, Ben Hobson.
Today we're talking with Jenny, Becca, Ali and Ian about the rise of the running influencer. So thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome.
But let's start at the beginning then. So let's start with you, Becca. How did you first get into running?
I got into running, I think like a lot of people did, during COVID. All the gyms shut, the netball courts closed, and I was like, how am I going to actually exercise? And I went out on that first run, did that 2K and died. And then the rest is history, basically.
Jenny?
Yeah, so similar to Becca, I did my first 5K in lockdown, and it was the worst experience of my life. Still to this day, I absolutely hated running. And then last year, I was at CrossFit, and I just really wasn't enjoying it, and I wanted to do something to challenge myself. So I said to myself, I'm going to go out on my first run of the year. I went out and ran 3K, and I don't really know what came over me that day, but I got home and I signed up to a 50K ultra marathon.
I love that.
Yeah. Being Delulu is the Salulu, you know. And then just spent my entire summer running, and then here I am. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
3K to 50K, boom.
New couch to 5K, innit?
Yeah. Beat that, Ian. What about you?
A colleague at work, we were out at the pub, may have been drunk, and he convinced me to enter the London Marathon ballot, and I was like, I won't get in, and I got in. Panicked, did it anyway, and never looked back. It was the best thing ever.
Amazing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Most people are that sometimes you get that, I've got to do that distance, never again. You were the other side.
I think it was because the week before I tried to do a long run, failed at like 14 miles, went home convinced I wasn't going to do the marathon, and then was told you better do it by my mother. She said, you're not letting me down. Did it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So it was like overcoming that adversity meant I went back.
Oh, interesting. In terms of like documenting this online, was that something that started straight away for you, Becca? Were you like, I like running and I want to talk about it online?
Absolutely not. I never intended to be sat on a Runners World podcast or like posting about it online at all. Obviously, like my background is being a doctor, and I was kind of just posting about my doctor life instead. Like I'm an expedition doctor, so I was just kind of posting about all my trips and stuff, and everyone was quite interested in like how I get to go to Kilimanjaro and work in the Arctic and work in the jungle. So I was just kind of posting about that. And initially I was like, okay, I want to set up a business to get other people involved in expedition medicine. So I started posting online to try and gain some clientele, basically. But then the trip stopped. So I was like, okay, I need to post about something else. And I just went back to work as a doctor. And I was actually posting about how I was working full time, but trying to fit my runs in at the same time. And it got quite a lot of traction. Everyone was like, how are you working a full-time job whilst also training for ultra marathons? People were quite interested in that. And then I was posting about being burnt out and how running was helping with that as well. And I found that was what people were actually really interested in. And slowly it just became more running. And then suddenly 6 months later, I'm now classed
Here
as
we are.
I'm now classed as a running influencer, I guess. But it was never the intention. It was always meant to be around being a doctor.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
What are you in?
So I'd always wanted like creative outlets, and I find stuff like Instagram fascinating. And Gary, who got me to do the marathon at the beginning, he isn't social. He's not on social media. And he inspired me daily because we were at work, and I was like, how could I try and do that for other people?
Yeah.
To try and help others, because running changed my life. How could I help other people do that? And I thought Instagram was a good way to try.
And Ian, I feel like I followed you on social media for quite a few years, probably since 2020, 2021.
Yes, quite a while.
How do you think you've seen quite a difference in that time on social media in terms of how running's changed as well? And the content I suppose you post.
I think it's more accessible now. It's definitely cooler. It's like a thing at the moment. And there is like the rise of the running influencer. I think it's more acceptable to just talk about running all the time. Like if you talk about running all the time at work, someone will tell you to stop talking about running. Like Instagram's the one place people, if you haven't posted in a while about a run, they go, what race have you got next? So I just feel like it's a lot more acceptable now, which is great.
Where are you, Jenny? You were CrossFitting it up and then you suddenly thought,
Yeah, well, I've actually always really loved social media. I had a blog when I was 15. If you read that now, you'd be like, this girl's insane.
I want
Is
to
it-
read that.
Is it still there? Can we find it in the archives?
I honestly think that it will be. I used to write about what celebrities wore for award shows.
oh, it's big content.
Yeah. Like, I was like, Taylor Swift wore this dress today and stuff, but no one read it. And I've actually been posting fitness content for 7 years on Instagram. In lockdown, I created this strange TikTok that I did dances on, and no one really watched any of it, but I really enjoyed the process of making videos. And I work in fitness tech, so I've actually worked alongside really popular fitness influencers in the UK for the past 3 years. And I think about a year and a half ago, I was definitely inspired to just like put more effort into content. So yeah, I started a series on Instagram called Just Show Up. And it was just me going to the gym every day. I went into CrossFit with a microphone and a tripod, and it got like a few likes. And then ever since I started running, I think I without realizing, I probably got in at a good time. And ever since I started running, that's only really when people have actually watched my videos. If you scroll right back, like there's a lot on there.
We're
yeah.
going to after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to find that
Google it.
blog post
Yeah.
so much.
It's interesting because it sounds like there's an element of luck involved with how you kind of merge into being on social media
Yeah.
and as sort of your full-time job.
Yeah.
But it also sounds as if all three of you had, I guess, an angle in. Like you all come from three different perspectives, really. What is it, do you think, that your audience is like about you in particular?
I guess if I was an outside perspective, I think when I first started posting, I don't take things like that serious, if that makes sense. And I was a little bit slower. The funny thing is, I didn't actually realise I was slow until people on Instagram told me I was slow.
How
because
nice of them. Yeah.
That's polite.
Yeah, and I only followed like 2 mates on Strava. I followed 2 running influencers at the time, Johnny and Savannah, and I didn't really understand pace and stuff like that. And a lot of people kind of related to the pace I was running at without me really realizing, and I kind of got put into this category of like slow runners or relatable comfort runners, if that kind of makes sense, without me kind of realizing. Yeah.
But as someone who, I actually followed you before I met you,
Yeah.
a fan to a friend.
Yeah.
But I think the way that people actually like you because you're so relatable and you are so down to earth, and that is your niche. There's so many people who perfectly create their lives on Instagram, and it's even your stories now. I was like watching them last night, and I was like, you're just so real, and that is what your niche is. And I think it's so important. Like people do well on Instagram because they have a niche. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm a bit weird as well, and I think people like that.
We talked
Nothing
about like
wrong with being weird.
Yeah.
running having maybe like a bit of a moment. Do you sense that in actually running over the last say 2 or 3 years is having a bit of a moment? More people are coming into it. Maybe it's broadening its appeal. It's becoming cooler and younger.
Yeah, I think lockdown helped people get into running, and now there's a rise of accessible run clubs, because before you had run clubs that were real pace-based, stuff like that. Now it's like just let's build a community, let's go out and run together, and I think that's really important. I did Friday Night Lights for the first time.
Yeah.
And someone that runs a certain pace, you get them, you're like, oh, this is interesting. It's a little bit slower, and you're like, actually, time doesn't make a difference, and that's I think the beauty of it now. Is it's even more accessible because times are out the window. It's just let's just hang out, have fun, and build a community.
Yeah, that is good.
I wonder if social media as well sort of helps with that, because before you would have had to have gone along to a run club to realise that not everyone was running at those super fast paces. Whereas I guess you've now got people like yourself, Jenny, who are showing on social media that not everyone at these run clubs is running at those paces.
Yeah.
So it's almost like advertising in a way.
Yeah, and I guess that's been a big part of my run club, because I've run at a little bit of a slower pace than what people consider, fast or slow. And then I think people have related to that and wanted to come my run club for that reason, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think run clubs is just so much about making friends now. It's not necessarily about running. A lot of people come to run clubs and they're not actually the biggest fan of running, really.
Yeah.
But everyone just knows it's an easy way to make friends. It's an easy way to actually meet partners now as well, like with dating, and just build a community now. Like all my friends I've met from run clubs.
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah.
I read the other day that I think it's a third of Gen Z choosing not to drink now, and I think that like the way to meet people when I was younger was you'd go to the pub or I'd go out clubbing a few times a week and stuff like that. But now it's the actual rise of like fun, wholesome activities. I think is like really showing through running.
Yeah, we were chatting a bit about Strava's report, weren't we? And how it shows that things are changing. So under 25s, women under 25 are the fastest growing community on Strava. And Gen Zs are also 31% less likely to work out primarily for their health compared to millennials. So there's obviously this shift of people aren't just running to look a certain way, which maybe people were exercising the past few years for that reason. And running's almost created this shift in how we view exercise and the reasons that we're doing it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely people are running for their mental health now as opposed to physical health. Like when I started running, or like when like our generation were starting to work out, it was always to lose weight. And I think the shift on social media is not about that anymore. It's all about for our mental health and not to get skinny anymore, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think like even for women as well is like there's a big topic on Instagram about like, you know, women gain weight when they're training for a big race and stuff like that. But it's almost like a lot of people are kind of like embracing that, which it's less like body focus now and more about like how you feel and like achieving these like amazing things that most people wouldn't have ever thought they could do.
Yeah, and I think that what is being achieved is different now. It's about, okay, I've run an ultra, that's the achievement, not I've run an ultra in this time. And that's what's really good. People are saying, I've done my first half marathon. They're not even talking about the time. And that, I think, makes it removes that barrier to entry of people going, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Like, you are ready, you can do it. And that's what I think is really good at the moment. It is definitely the rise of just do it.
Yeah, and if you think about fitness influencers, maybe say 5 years ago, a lot of how they probably made their income was through selling bikini body guides through Instagram and to their audience. Whereas now it feels like it's completely different sort of revenue streams and the content people are absorbing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think because I was properly into like fitness Instagram years and years ago. I was obsessed with Chrissy Chella and I still love her now, right? But it was interesting because back in the day I would kind of be obsessed of like how someone looked and I would follow their workouts thinking that maybe I was going to look like them without realizing, you know, that we're all actually very different and I will never look like Chrissy Chella, unfortunately. But I think people now follow people they can like relate to more or see themselves in, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Do you think that the aesthetic and all of these things is then super important, as in the front-facing thing that you then put out on your accounts and how you want to present yourself image-wise, aesthetic-wise, kit, all of those sorts of things? Do you have to be very conscious of actually separating yourself from the very obvious fitness trends that were previously been seen online? Or do you just want to just be as natural as you possibly can and you look the way you look because of running and because of what your life is like? And how do you juggle that? Because people are going to be heavily always judgmental.
Yeah.
But also you need to be as relatable as possible.
I feel like the best content actually is the relatable stuff. I think it used to be like the proper clean girl aesthetic and your house to look perfect and all that. But now it's the more that you film on a phone and you show your messy room and you show that your life is a complete mess, that's the stuff that does so much better now. As soon as you make your life look perfect, everyone's like, I don't want to see that. Like, that is not real life. And then all the stuff that whenever I'm most real and most vulnerable, that is the best part, really.
Is that quite hard to do? 'Cause like you say, you're making yourself kind of vulnerable and you're saying, I'm not perfect. This is actually the reality of like life as a runner or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
Opening up vulnerability-wise online. I've done a lot of there's a lot of videos of me crying on the internet. But they're the ones that it's not doing it to do well, but they're the ones that people respond to and go, thank you so much for opening up about this. And I really do think it's important to be vulnerable online and show all those kind of sides to you. But then it is that I put up a video the other day of me like crying, and then I immediately took it down because I was like, actually, this is too much. It's too much of a door. And then you get a lot of people opening up to you as well. And it's just a whole new thing.
Yeah,
but I think
sure.
it's trying to learn how much to give and give enough, but also...
Yeah, I think that's, I like your content because it is really authentic and it's, you know, it's quite transparent and it shows vulnerability. And I think, you almost have a moral obligation to show a part of that, because otherwise people will chase the running the ultras and stuff and think it's easy, I'm just going to do that. And I think we have to understand our influence and go, actually, yeah, this is hard. Or if we do something that might be a stupid challenge, for example, that is slightly unhinged, you openly say that. You don't, the glossy stuff that you might put someone at risk of injury or something. I think we need to be really honest and go, I've just done this. I did a 24-hour swim. How was it? It was great, but I only got 1 hour's sleep. So that's the bit of going, like, just tell the whole story, because that one, I think, connects with people. And it actually shows the reality of the situation. So I think it's
And
really important.
often we have like those times where I think Savannah always says this really well about how like and running influences life is quite different to someone who works a 9 to 5 or shift work and stuff. We definitely have more time to exercise and put time into our fitness challenges. And it's making sure that people are aware that, like, I went out and did a 60k run the other day on a Tuesday morning. Most people don't really have the time to do that, but I do, because it's part of my job. And so I don't want people to then watch my content and go, that's what we should aspire to, because it's just
dated, and they're doing 9 to 5 plus trying to do a 60k and then being absolutely broken by the end of it.
Exactly.
And I guess, is that part of how you retain your relatability the more you grow? Because I feel like the more you grow, the more you're going to have this flexibility and freedom to do these long runs, whereas probably when you started, you were just like everyone else.
Yeah, because so I've just been through the transition. Is my last day in my full-time job is this Friday. And stuff, and like, obviously, thank God. And obviously that is a thing that plays through my mind, because but I've always been quite open in the fact I kind of say to people that, because I work quite a hectic job, come home, make content, and then train myself, that like my social life for the past 18 months or dating life and everything has taken like such a backseat because I just don't have any time. And I try and say that I'm like, it's a lot. So don't compare, because I have sacrificed like a lot to get here. And a lot of people might just want to like run a 5k after work with their mates, and like that's fine. Me and Becca went on a panel like a month or so ago, and because we're both training for 100-kilometer ultras right now. And the girls' faces were like, oh, like inspiring, but like we were kind of like, don't compare that. Like, you don't need to run 100 kilometers to like achieve run.
But definitely I feel like as I've grown, I've definitely become less relatable. People, I feel like, liked at the start that I was working a full-time job and fitting my running around my training, and now I'm like, I've like quit my job a few months ago. Then I don't have that relatability anymore, and I wonder how other people are feeling about that. And it's quite hard to navigate.
Well, I think I left my job in February, and I think the bit that for me that is the balance now is I've got a 9-year-old daughter. And a huge element of balance and family life is where it comes in. So I want to try and see if I can find out this stat, but I think a huge percentage of my runs are done at 11 p.m. because I'm doing a run streak, so every day I run. And initially I was running at like 7 o'clock at night, and I was like, actually, a big reason I run is to extend my life, to be around longer with my daughter. So if I run when she's awake, it's actually doing the opposite. So I'll put her to bed and then run at 11 and really open about. I call them Cinderella runs, because if I don't get it done, it's over. So it's really important to just say stuff like that and say, look, it's a balance, right? We've all got to juggle something, and we just be honest with that battle.
I was interested about this. What was the tipping point that signified that this was going to be something that you could take on full time? What was the thing? Was it amount of followers? Was it interaction? Was it brands approaching? Was it just literally like, this is financially now viable? Like, what was the thing that?
I think mine was definitely through my community, runners and stunners. And there's been so many times that at run clubs or at events, or like in situations like we watched the London Marathon, and people were running past me screaming, I'm a stunner. And in those moments, I know it sounds so ridiculous, but it has made me think like I have created something so special. And if I can invest more time into that over like the next few years and just see what happens, then like to go for it. But it's been like tiny little moments along the way. And obviously brands approaching me as well, because you need to get paid, right?
Yeah. This is it.
Yeah.
Is that the same as you, Becca?
Mine was slightly different. I was working full-time as a doctor, and I was completely burnt out. I had to quit my job because I couldn't work in the hospital anymore. I actually feel like whenever I talk about it, I feel like I'm going to tear up, because the NHS is an absolute bits, and for junior doctors it is really hard. So I had to leave, and this was kind of like, okay, well, I can make money through this while I figure out the kind of next move. what I then realized is actually the way that I can help people actually feels tenfold doing it this way compared to what I was doing in the hospital. Sometimes working in the hospital, you feel like a cog in the wheel and you don't really feel like you're helping many people.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to sit down with patients anymore and talk about lifestyle measures to improve their health, like going running and improving their diet. But actually the effect I had by doing this and influencing people on the internet and creating the healthcare club, I'm directly helping people. I'm directly seeing the effect I have as well. And I think going about health in a public health way I felt like I was, basically having more effect than working in the
right.
hospital.
Yeah.
It's interesting hearing all three of you talk because it almost sounds a lot less glamorous than I think people think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Like going for runs at 11 p.m. and sort of like having to juggle everything.
Yeah,
I
fitting
think
it
it's
in.
very scrappy. It is, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Even I think people, I guess, probably have a perception, right, that you put a post out, do a brand partnership, and it's sort of you just sat twiddling your thumbs the rest of the day. It sounds like there's a lot more strategy involved with probably building your personal brand and then doing everything else alongside it.
100%. I think, especially while I was working a job, like I would get home, 6 or 7, and just immediately start making content. And sometimes if I'm really putting an effort into a video, it can take me like 3-4 hours to make one. And also to like think of those ideas at times when you kind of burn out. And it sounds so ridiculous, but I have this very big fear that if I don't post every day, I will lose everything. And then that's like probably slightly ridiculous, but it is kind of in my head because every time I've taken like a few days off posting, it always takes a little bit longer to like pick back up again. So every time I take a few days off, I'm like, I've lost it. I've lost everything and stuff.
That sounds
It's stressful, isn't it? Yeah.
really awful. Like to have that like absolute that I know it's a job, so I mean if I have to like compartmentalize it to be like actually the stress of posting is much like going to an office and having that stress again. But do you find that, do all of you have that, like the post pressure? Are you like, this, I have to do this every day, it has to be certain amounts of stuff, stories, reels, whatever I'm doing, it has to be like constant?
Yeah, the pressure to grow on other platforms too, because I naturally grew on Instagram, but people say you want to get paid more, you need to grow on TikTok. Like brands are paying for TikTok and stuff like that. So there's that additional pressure, like, oh, you can see other creators jumping on YouTube and doing all these different things, and you're like, oh my god,
Yeah, right.
It's definitely like it is an amazing job. Like it is a great job, and we're not here to complain about it in any way, shape, or form. But I think mentally, it definitely takes its toll on you because of the pressure. Your job is directly correlated with people liking you.
Yeah.
If people, and that is, so if you're feeling insecure one day, going, everyone's had it when they've been like, oh, the whole world hates me or everything's going against me, then you just feel like you're going to lose everything, and that's you're losing your finances, you're losing your job, just based on what people think of you, and that is, I find, mentally really difficult.
And I think there's an understanding that it can be quite fickle, right? And we're talking about a running boom. Well, you know, what happens when the boom stops? You have to always think and understand that there's a risk in this being the job, and you know, I've got family to support, so knowing almost what's next, and just working hard, right? If you work hard, you hope things will come, and if you're honest, you hope people will like you. And if they don't like you, they might give you nice feedback. Go, by the way, don't do that, and you can work on it. So I think it's just that understanding that it can be quite fickle. Like, I think for me, you understand that not everyone will like you, and that's okay.
That's okay as well.
But also, people will tell you if they don't like you, which you're opening up yourself to a lot of hate online as well, which is, again, another massive negative of the job. I know that some people get it worse than others.
I think I've definitely learned the more I've grown that the more people have an opinion on me. Tip to any fellow content creators, don't Google yourself. But yeah.
You mentioned like the other platforms, and like TikTok or RunTalk, I guess, is one that we're aware of, and it's got, I think, over 1 billion views. So it's a big thing. In terms of creating content for those channels, let's talk about RunTalk. Like, what kind of other considerations do you have to have when you're thinking about a channel like that?
Because because I've worked with fitness influencers as well for like the past couple of years, I sometimes see like a little bit of a difference between like Instagram and TikTok. And I kind of saw the trend of like storytelling like really take off on TikTok for a bit. And now I feel like just random stuff does well on TikTok. So I do think you have to take into consideration sometimes like the platforms are quite different. And I think Instagram likes just better looking content, whereas TikTok can just be like, you just put your phone up now, say something and post it, and
Right,
that
yeah,
will do
yeah.
kind of well, if that kind of makes sense. I think, yeah, you do have to think that sometimes the platforms are quite different, and what does well on Instagram isn't necessarily going to do well on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I find when I have like over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and then I have 6,000 on TikTok, and it's like I post the same thing
Okay.
on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Instagram you can have a strategy. I feel like TikTok it's a bit random.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about it the other day, and someone at my daughter's school, a kid, was like, "Oh, you've come up on my TikTok." I was like, "Oh, cool." He's like, "Yeah, I got 10,000 views on a video," and he just posted a video of him running sports day.
Right.
You're
Right.
like, okay, like how
Yeah.
how's that,
How does that work?
become?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
10,000 people want to
Yeah.
watch it?
It's a younger audience, isn't it?
Yeah.
On top
Yeah.
audience, yeah.
Is it
That's
hard?
why Ian doesn't do well.
I wasn't suggesting
I
that.
was
Ian.
waiting.
I wasn't
for that.
Savvy.
I had to get that
It's
in.
fine. She'll be old one day, but I'll probably be dead by then.
Do you almost have to choose one channel that you're going to dedicate yourself to? Because I've often been told, oh, I'll just post it to that and then post it to that.
Yeah,
and then
does
Yeah.
it work if you just
No,
the same
not for
thing
me.
across?
No, I think there's an algorithm. I've been told about this. There's always those secret algorithms that occur.
yeah.
But I've been told that because they're kind of linked, if you post it on Instagram first, it's not going to do as well on TikTok, and then same vice versa as well. But I know content creators who can post consistently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and they just do so well. And I'm like, I can barely keep up on Instagram.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. I think you definitely need different stuff for both. Yeah, I think Holly Brooks is like, I always kind of watch her stuff because she's just on it on every platform, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, posting every day, multiple videos on TikTok and stuff like that. But maybe now I've not got a job that I can do more. But
I feel like you always feel like you could do more, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll go to an event, you'll go to a race, you're just on the train home eating your McDonald's or whatever, and then it comes up that the person you've been to the event has edited a reel, posted a reel, done a TikTok, and you're like, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Constant
yeah.
yeah,
comparison,
and
isn't it?
I think it's hard not to compare yourself to others, and then even like when you look at views and stuff, sometimes you post real similar content, they'll get it, you don't, or vice versa.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is, that's really interesting as well.
And people expect you to be competitive as well. Like we were saying the other day, like us two and our friend Selena all have London run clubs, and we're all young female influencers.
Yeah.
They're always like, why are you friends? And you're like,
Oh, right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think
that's interesting.
There's
That's
room for
interesting.
everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're at work, works hard, and they increase the team, and you have someone else doing the job with you, you don't go, oh, why are you here? What are you doing?
No.
You're like, great, we're a team. I feel like there's
We're
room for
colleagues.
everyone there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should ever compete. I mean, Michael, who's a really good friend, we talk quite openly about brands, what we're doing.
Yeah.
We'll do races together, and it's like, oh, you're doing that race, do you want to lift? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like one of the best things with the Instagram community is meeting people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
Yeah.
get people that make comment about your age, but
Yeah.
they're awesome,
On
so
a
you take
podcast.
it, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
fine.
I know that's the best bit about the job though. Like I feel like I've met so many like-minded people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I've got so many friends in the industry, and it's just the nicest thing. We had an event the other day, like doing some interval runs, turned up, and we just knew everyone there, and it was just a day out with friends.
Yeah,
you
that's
get
so
to,
nice,
You get
yeah.
to work with your friends, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And everyone's in the same boat. And I sometimes think as well that we can live in an echo chamber. Like sometimes I think everyone's starting run clubs, everyone's running, or do I just follow people that are starting run clubs and things like that, right? And it's like I compare myself to 20 other London runners. But the world and social media
Sure,
is
yeah,
actually
yeah.
so much
Yeah.
bigger than that as well. But yeah.
But I think there needs to be an understanding, because I know people that have started run clubs because of you.
Oh.
And it's like these people exist actually because of you. So it's a huge compliment
Yeah,
that
that is.
Yeah.
they're now doing something that they find fulfilling, that will then increase your reach, not maybe directly,
Yeah.
but actually the reach of your inspiration, the motivation. And it's like that trickle effect. And that I think is really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
nice. My friend, she does like swimming, and she did like a girly swim meet up on the weekend, and she sent me a message afterwards. I was like, oh, she's done like a swim meet up, that's cool. And then she sent me a message afterwards, Larry, and she
Yeah.
was like, I just want to say thanks for inspiring me. Like I've just created this because you inspired me with runners and stunners. So if it's getting more people out, more people moving, then yeah,
That's so nice.
everyone
yeah.
wins. Yeah.
And I guess it's like what you've said about how, yes, you're both female under a certain age in London, but
Yeah.
actually probably what you offer is totally different from each other. So
Yeah.
still there is these different audiences, so there's things you can learn from each other.
Yeah, I've had people come to my run club and I just go, you should go to Jenny's instead, because it's probably more appropriate. You'll get on with you'll make friends there as well. And it's just everyone needs the more we can help each other, because I don't know, I feel like the reason most people do this is to inspire people to get moving, get moving, get healthier. That is the kind of end goal, and I hope that's what other running influencers' big aim is too. So why be competitive? It's one big
happy family.
Yeah, 100%.
So we've been chatting in the office, and we were like, we think running's getting really cool. Maybe running's always been cool, but it feels like it's.
We've been saying it's cool,
A bit of deaf now, won't it? Runners world say it's cool. It's not cool anymore. Do you get a sense of that? And what are the kind of components of that? Do you think it's younger people taking up running? Is it the kind of
The brands?
Is it fashion and running coming together? What do you think?
I think it's everything. I think it's a little bit of a fashion trend at the moment, but because I think there's with women, it might be putting a bow in your hair, or getting on a really cool outfit, something like that. But because I see a lot of hate towards it online, as influencers are making people do this and stuff. But I just think people are getting dressed up to go on a run, feel nice, and have a croissant afterwards. We're not out taking drugs in the park. I kind of like it, and I think I honestly think that if you feel good and you look good, you just enjoy it more and perform better. So I kind of enjoy the fact that it's a little bit of a fashion trend.
Yeah. I loved it when someone said that London Marathon Week is the new fashion week. And I just thought that was the epitome of everything. It was so good. But I do think it's a trend, and I do think people, I don't care why people get into it, whether it's because you want to post a pretty picture of you on Instagram or wear a scrunchie. If it gets you moving, then who cares why it's got cooler?
Yeah,
but hopefully we can find a way for it to stay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also what is cool, right? There's lots of different people's opinion of what is cool. And I think there's enough run clubs to cater for all. Pure Sport Run Club is cool for some people, and other people, they might go, whoa, I'm not that cool to go to Pure Sport. But actually, here's all of these other run clubs that actually suit my sort of version of cool.
Yeah.
Because there's a worry if it all becomes the same cool, that it actually is less accessible. Because you're like, oh, I can't go there because I look like this. But I think just knowing there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And there's enough run clubs that there is something for everyone.
100%.
Do you think there's a danger of it becoming, as you say, looking intimidating? Do you think there's a...
I think it already does, but I think there is enough of other run clubs to cater for that. Because there's some I look at and go, I couldn't run that pace.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to go. Actually, I'll go to this place instead. And I think that's it. Just knowing it's out there. And some people may go to a certain speed run club because they go, actually, I'm not as quick as everyone else.
Yeah.
And they might follow a journey that leads them somewhere. Yeah. And they might end up at that other run club. And it's that journey that's really important as well. And that's why I think it's important not to almost compete. Because you could be running a run club and go, they might be like, oh, I'm a bit quicker now. What should I do?
Yeah.
Go, oh, you can go to this run club now. As long as you do that, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what's quite nice about the rise of running influencers is that it manages to serve these people who can't see themselves in these certain run clubs.
Exactly.
And then it's not an echo chamber because you see these people, oh, actually there is something out there in running that I could get involved in.
Yeah. There was a girl that came to my run club once, and she was a bit faster than the pace that we were actually running at, but she came because she wanted to practice her confidence to go to Pure Sport. She was running with me at the front, and she wanted to go to Pure Sport and talk to guys, and she was using my run club as a practice, as in going to a run club alone kind of thing. So I was like, cool. She never come back, so I hope she comes to Pure Sport.
Now completely married.
Yeah.
I do think it can be so intimidating though. I've been to run clubs, and I would say I'm an okay runner. And obviously a running influencer, and I've been to run clubs and felt intimidated before. So God knows how other people may feel as well. So I hope people don't look at our content and get intimidated or put off by it. That'd be the worst.
Yeah.
Can we talk about ambitions for the future in this year and beyond? Where do you hope that your sort of message you're putting out about running lead?
So I'm on a 2-year run streak. That may be more. It started off as 100 days, 365. So I want to keep doing that and picking off lots of different challenges on the way. At the weekend, there was talk of doing an Ironman.
We've heard rumours of this.
So that may or may not happen, but it's just for me, if the biggest thing I want to project is if it's crap, I'm going to tell you. Like if I've had a bad run, I will tell you. I won't just go, I'm not going to post it because that was a bit rough. I just want to keep being authentic. And if I can inspire somebody to take up running, to go to a run club, to change your life. I know it sounds dramatic. My life was changed by running. If one person does that, my job's done. Like, that's it. And as long as it's relatable, my cousin went off and was like, oh, I've run 3 days in a row. And then he was really upset because he didn't do 4. And I'm like, running every day is not normal. Like 3 times a week is amazing.
Yeah.
Just be happy with that. And as long as that message comes across, I'll be happy.
Great. How about you, Becca? What's the ambitions for what you're doing?
I feel I want to channel all my energy into the healthcare club, which is basically a community set up to improve the health of healthcarers. And that is by creating a space for them to take up running or any exercise in general. So yeah, all my energy is going to be put into that and hopefully be able to create a job of that and not have to go back to the hospital. But yeah, and also just by doing my own fitness challenges, inspiring other people. Like there's nothing better than when you get a message from someone being like, I've gone out on a run today because of you. Like I've had some of my best friends message me, but like you've actually inspired me, and it's just there's nothing better than that because I do genuinely believe that movement is medicine, and if that's my new role as a doctor, then I'm so happy with that as a job.
Yeah, that's great. And Jenny, well, almost at the end of the job now.
Yes, come on. I hope this isn't going out before Friday.
What's the future hold, you hope?
Yeah, so I want to just continue to make really good storytelling content. I love telling stories through like running videos. The main goal, like Becca, is most of my energy will be put into runners and stunners. I think like I've got something really special and I just want to grow it. I want to expand it, like, and just make it like the best and the biggest female running community that's out there, basically.
So with running being so big right now, do you see running staying big, or do you just think it's a pathway into something else? Like how we've had strength training being really big a few years ago and now everyone's running. Where do you see it going?
I hope it stays. I don't know if it's my echo chamber or what I'm seeing on social media, but I do see a lot of people starting to like swim and cycle, and I wonder if it's people going into that. But like you said before, I do think part of the reason running might have got big is we're in a cost of living crisis, and it is free as well. Other than like the fancy gear and the races and stuff like that. But yeah, I think we might be seeing more people do triathlons.
Yeah,
but yeah,
as someone who is moving from running probably into triathlons, I did a little triathlon yesterday. I do feel like that's the way it's moving as well. I'm seeing a lot. It normally happens because people take up running and then get injured. So then they take up swimming and cycling, and then they realize they can do a triathlon, and it's massively growing now. Everyone now wants to do a half Ironman or an Ironman, which is great if you can incorporate even more sports. But there is massive barriers to that as well. It's not like running. It is so expensive. As someone who's just got their first bike, it is so...
How much was it?
I can't.
You can't disclose.
They're thousands, right?
Yeah, it's really expensive, and I think when you look at triathlon, it's also what's the best bike. Not just I need a bike. I need a bike. Oh no, I need a better bike. I need a new helmet. And it's like, I feel like triathlon is a lot of money. You could spend £10,000 when you're running it into an Ironman. I think that's the bit where I think that could be a barrier to entry. But I think running will always be there. Because if you look at everything that's getting popular, high rocks, triathlon, running is a big part of all of that. So I think it will always exist. I think faces will change and people will grow into other sports, but they will always have running as part of that journey because, most of the people that are doing really good at high rocks are really good runners.
Yeah. And I guess there's the hope that even though you've got the expensive kit, you've got all these races going up in price, that running remains at the core, just people putting on a pair of shoes and going out
the
the door.
simplicity of running, you hope it stays, don't you?
Yeah, it needs to retain that.
Yeah, I think there's an element for me that I hope run clubs become big enough that races don't really matter. So when you look at some races, people are being outpriced, they can't afford it. But if your run club did a half, they will get more out of that than going and getting a medal that gets just put in a cupboard and a T-shirt that gets put in a bin.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I think I'd really like to see it go. That there are races. And people, go and do races, but that's not what it's all about because that's
a trend that maybe people are potentially getting less interested in the race aspect of it.
I was going to add to this, that you guys coming out of lockdown, there was no racing.
Yeah.
So when you started that running, that wasn't lots of people get into it like, oh, I'm gonna get that 5K, but that wasn't yours. Was got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Like, that's the sort of thing. So
Yeah, it took me 2 years to do my first marathon because it just wasn't a thing to think about. It was literally like, I just want to improve my mental health and go as far as I can.
Yeah, I think races, previously people would enter a race to race.
Yeah.
I want to get a time, and as times get less important, the races get less important.
Yeah. I
You
think
know?
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think possibly. There you go. Interesting.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more people not, like you said before, we're seeing more people not go for a time, which is making more people think that, believe that they can do it. And it's like, how many people entered the London Marathon ballot this year? It's like 850,000. That's wild, and I think more and more people are seeing it and thinking that they can do it, which I personally think is great, but I reckon Run Talk is having a big impact on that. Like London Marathon Week, I was crying every night on TikTok.
But this is why I think ultramarathons are massively growing in popularity as well, because it's no longer about the speed, it is about the fact that you're pushing your mental limits and just wanting to get the distance done. And I just think if you think the running community is good, that the trail running and ultra running community is even better because it's literally not about times.
Yeah, I wonder if almost the road running community is becoming what the trail community always has been. Because if you go along to a trail race, it's so inclusive. There's all sorts of different people there who you don't necessarily look at and think, yes, they're what I think a runner's going to be. And I think we're seeing that trickle down into road running. So it would be nice to see, I guess, them both merge into each other a bit rather than be separate, which they probably have been. Before now.
I think some London run clubs are actually now starting to do day trips out to the trails, which is even better.
That's great. That's
if I can get people more trail running, that's amazing.
I was going to do that. That was one of the things I wanted to do.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Collab coming up.
So that brings us to the end of the Runners World podcast. Thanks very much to our guests, Jenny, Becca, Ian and Ali, and to you, of course, for watching.